I'm going to be having an unfiltered, no BS discussion to show you the true diversity that exists in beauty around the world. Take full control of your quest for your own beauty. All right, welcome back to Uncensored Beauty. Today's topic is going to be about the influencer effect of filters versus reality. So now in this age of social media where it's basically taken over most of our lives on a daily basis, we've all become pretty accustomed to the range of filters that exist online, and filters that can frankly either make you look as beautiful as ever. There's even filters that can make you look like a pig. There's filters that can make you look like an alien. And frankly, they're a lot of fun to play around with. But where this becomes a problem, and why I wanted to talk to you about it today, is because these filters ultimately are having an impact on the way in which people see themselves, and therefore translating into how the beauty industry is responding to these newfound desires that people may have as a result of the filters. The filters, at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're using different AI technologies and stuff to edit your face, and ultimately, whether it's to narrow the jaw or narrow the nose or open the eyes more, doing things to you that maybe seem more aesthetically pleasing. Frankly, you can actually go fully without makeup and use a filter to mimic exactly what that makeup does. So in some ways, as much as it's a lot of fun to play with these things, what I want to focus on is the psychological impact that this is having on people, especially as the exposure continues to grow more and more and more year over year. Now, the reality is that influencers are often the guilty party when it comes to use of filters. I think influencer culture obviously has exploded in the United States, with the supreme influencer basically being Kim Kardashian. But there are thousands of other influencers underneath that threshold who are doing things to their bodies, and maybe not actually in real life, but on social media are enhancing and editing themselves to look a certain way and portraying that out to their followers. Now, as much as that may seem harmless for that individual because they know they're putting the filter on, it's pretty harmful to the ones who are watching, and specifically the young women that are watching these shows and these influencers posting these pictures. I don't know if you remember, but recently, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, there was a report that was put out that showed Meta had actually purposefully targeted the insecurities of young women in order to increase engagement. And that was by boosting things such as influencers who had put a lot of filters and boosting people who were not really giving a realistic expectation of what their bodies actually looked like. And that became a problem, because ultimately at the end of the day, a young person, not even young women, but just young people in general, they're not going to have the same level of perspective as an adult. You know, I'm in my 30s, and I can personally now look back at photos of myself when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, and I can see that things start to evolve. I'm getting used to the fact that things change with age, and that goes even more so for people who are in their 40s and 50s. There's a certain level of accepting the fact that you do look the way you are, and that a lot of times there's not a lot you can do to change certain parts of, imperfections that may exist. But for a child, they're not going to have that perspective. So when they see an influencer online who's posting photos of themselves with a perfectly narrow waist, a perfectly rounded buttocks, the perfect nose, the perfect hair, even if it's all filtered and photoshopped, they're not going to know. They're not going to have any idea. So what's that going to do? It's going to make them look in the mirror and wonder why the hell they don't look that good, and nothing they do allows them to take a picture that's as amazing as that influencer has posted without then resorting to photoshopping and filtering and editing the photos of themselves. Now, what that then leads to is a slippery slope, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you start taking photos of yourself and Photoshop every single one of those photos to create a body different from that which you have, eventually you're going to start to hate the body you actually have and crave the body that you've created digitally over and over again. And as you can see, there comes a vicious cycle. So this is where I think it's really important that influencers and celebrities begin to highlight this and begin to speak out about it. And I have a couple examples of celebrities who have done exactly this. The first one is an actress named Jamila Jamil. She's well known for a bunch of roles she's played on TV, and she even has her podcast, which is called I Weigh. She's always been known because she's beautiful, gorgeous facial features, full hair, and she's always been known because she has been on the, quote, heavier side when it comes to her body standards. Now, when I look at her, I would not by no means say that she is heavy, but when it comes to the Hollywood standards of having the perfectly six-pack abs and perfectly toned bodies, yeah, she doesn't fit the mold because she has some extra pounds in certain areas that a lot of people would run quickly to my office to liposuction it out. But her whole point is that she wants to learn to embrace these things about herself because she understands that if she begins that quest of trying to look more and more perfect, she says it's a slippery slope. There is no such a thing as perfection. And I actually have a quote from her right here where she says, we need to accept that no one is perfect and start celebrating the things that make us unique. The world isn't going to change overnight, but the more we speak out about it, the more it will inspire others to do the same. And that is so true. I think just even that quote, those who listen to her podcast and that message being put out there, that has a kind of almost an antidote effect to what we're seeing influencers putting out there with their Photoshop bodies when it comes to messaging to those young women and young men, because it shows that, like, okay, this is a reputable individual who's known for her beauty. She's known for being gorgeous. She's known for being, a sex icon in her own way, but she didn't have to conform to the perfect beauty standards that a lot of these like pop princesses and these influencers feel like they have to mold to, and I think that's very powerful. Another person who has also kind of had the similar approach to their own beauty is Sophie Turner. You may know her from Game of Thrones, and frankly, Sophie Turner is gorgeous. But I will say, like, as a plastic surgeon, if I look at her face, I could tell you a few things that I could theoretically change about her look, but at the end of the day, does she want to change those things? No. So why is it my place to sit there and point out all the stuff I think she should have done? She's not asking for it. And that's my general philosophy. I will never offer up a piece of advice to somebody in an unsolicited manner. One of the questions I always get when I go to parties or social events, and the second someone finds out I'm a plastic surgeon, as you can imagine, often there's a lot of questions because, again, plastic surgery is a hot topic. No matter who you are, they would love to talk about it. They're fascinated by it. But one question I always get, without fail, is people looking at me and saying, so, what would you do to me? I hate that question because there is no good answer. Because at the end of the day, I am the pinnacle of an expert, of somebody who can tell you what you could change about your body. And if I, without inquiring further about what you actually want and what makes you insecure, if I point out something that you have never considered before, that could really psychologically mess with you. Because I understand the responsibility I have to keep that opinion to myself unless it's something you're looking for, right? So if you came up to me and you said, hey, I don't like my nose, what can you do for it? Or what do you think? That's a different conversation. You just came and admitted to me an insecurity, and you're asking me how my professional skill can help to adjust that feature that you're most concerned about. But if you come and say to me, what do you think about my face? And I say, well, your nose is too big. Now what have I done? I've now planted a seed into your mind that a plastic surgeon who is, at the top of the beauty industry is now telling me something's wrong with my nose when I never knew there was anything wrong with my nose. And that seed can quickly germinate into a very, very toxic train of thought and ultimately lead to some level of obsession. It's really important that not just plastic surgeons and medical practitioners who practice beauty medicine have this kind of mindset of understanding the power we hold in critiquing other people and where that may be appropriate or inappropriate. But I also hold influencers to that same standard. When I see influencers that are photoshopping their bodies and not being transparent about it, I hate that. because I think that ultimately is so toxic to society. It's not helping the influencer, it's not helping their followers, and it's not helping society as a whole. The reality too is that these softwares are now so advanced that you can Photoshop things basically undetectably. I mean, I could easily show you right now. I could pull up Facetune, which is one app I really like to use to kind of show people what their nose job may look like, etc. And sometimes I just use it to Photoshop pictures because I enjoy doing that kind of thing, because maybe I'm weird. But I need you to understand that these softwares are so sophisticated, you probably will not be able to understand when something is Photoshopped, which is why it is so dangerous. Because at the end of the day, if they don't know it's Photoshopped when they're seeing it, and the only person who knows it's Photoshopped is the individual in the photo and is not being transparent about it, then people are going to start to try and achieve those kind of beauty features that you have artificially altered and not even you have. Like, people are looking to copy you when you don't even actually have the feature that you're advertising. You know, Sophie Turner also had a really good quote, which I want to read for you. She said, quote, "It's really important to take a step back and remind ourselves that no one is perfect. We are all beautiful in our own way, and we have to embrace our uniqueness," unquote. Again, such a wise statement. And even me, as a plastic surgeon who makes a living off of altering people's appearances, I fully agree with this statement. I don't think anyone should come to my office saying, "Just change me up, doc," and have no idea what they actually want to change. No, because when people at a party ask me, "What do you think I need done?" what I respond with is, "Well, what do you want done? What do you think needs to be done?" Because then that puts the ownership of that problem into the hands of the individual, rather than me bringing up something that may then cause them to spiral into this death loop of obsessing over something they had never thought about before. And this ultimately, it really comes down to the societal pressure that exists on all of us to kind of be able to conform into this elusive theory that is beauty. At the end of the day, there is not one single beauty standard that is the gold standard and that it is going to be the key for you to get that job you're looking for, to get that husband, etc. That's not out there. The reality is, the only way you're going to get that job, you're going to get the man, get the woman, etc., is finding ways to be comfortable with yourself. And if plastic surgery is a part of that puzzle, fantastic. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to discuss that with you. But to think that plastic surgery is the cure-all Band-Aid that is going to make you into some 10 out of 10 hot stuff walking around that everyone's going to want, no, that's not going to happen. Because what people actually respect more than external beauty is going to be internal beauty. And that's why I genuinely believe that whatever you do externally should be a reflection of your internal sense. What's happening on the outside is supposed to reflect what you feel on the inside, and that's what's going to make you beautiful. It's the marriage of the external and the internal. It's not just one or the other. So I think at the end of the day, one thing I know we unpacked a lot here today, but at the end of the day, I think it's really important that you understand that your beauty is something that is dictated ultimately by you. You're never going to fit the standard of beauty that is set by Hollywood or the beauty industry perfectly, because nobody does. Not even the model on the screen is fitting that beauty norm perfectly. They are being airbrushed. They are being photoshopped. The lighting is amazing. So unless you have a camera crew and a $2 million budget per month for people to come and make sure you look like a perfect 10, 24/7, it ain't happening. And let me be real, even if you did have those things, you're still going to have moments where you don't look as good as you want to. Look at Kim Kardashian. Just go type into Google, Kim Kardashian ugly photos. I guarantee you're going to see 10 pages of paparazzi photos of her looking like this, or like weird neck turn, like double chin, kind of weird Botox cry, or whatever it is, because at the end of the day, she's a human being. She's not just some animated doll sitting there not moving and acting like she is perfect 24/7. And that's someone with a budget that pretty much no one else in the world has except like a handful of them. So at the end of the day, really just focus on what it is that you want out of your beauty journey. Focus on what it is that makes you happy, and really focus on the things that are going to help you boost your self-esteem, because that's the real beauty. Like for my nose, the reason I think it made me more attractive is not because I think it made my face more symmetrical necessarily, but it's because I feel better. I feel good about my face now. Is it sad that I had to resort to surgery? Sure, that's a different discussion that we can have at another day, but that's called being human. There are sad parts to the human condition, but it doesn't mean they're not real. So if there's one thing I can leave you with today, it's to really embrace who you are, be yourself, and figure out what it is that's going to make you happy. If plastic surgery is part of the equation, fantastic. If it's not, well, it's not. And you don't have to come to my office. You can just listen to my podcast. So with all that said, let's go ahead and transition over to our Glam Gasp segment for today, where I will be exploring a beauty trend from around the world that is shocking and wild. All right, it's time for our Glam Gasp segment, and today we're going to be exploring the world of permanent tanning. Maybe you didn't know that was a thing, but there is actually a way in which you can get a permanently bronze or tanned look to your skin, and it's through something called melanotan injections. So this is a substance, a synthetic substance that's injected into your skin, and what it does is it actually stimulates the production of what's called melanocytes. Now, melanocytes, what they are, they're literally the pigment-producing cells in the skin. So that's why, people who are from Scandinavia and have very white skin have a lower amount of melanin in their skin, and those who are from like sub-Saharan African regions or India and places where there are darker-skinned individuals have a higher concentration of melanin. Now, what this injection does, in theory, is it stimulates your body to produce more of these melanocytes, and therefore give the illusion that you have this kind of sun-kissed bronzed skin. But obviously it doesn't come without its risks. Much like anything else, that's a quick fix problem with a permanent solution. The problems with melanotan, one, is that it's unregulated. This is not an FDA-approved substance in the United States. And if you're getting it done, the problem without having something that's approved at all is that you're not going to be 100% sure that that's actually what you're getting injected into yourself. So you're kind of trusting blindly the practitioner who's doing this, that they are actually using the right substance and it's not mixed with some other God knows what that could cause its own host of problems. But even if it is the actual substance, at the end of the day, you're increasing the number of melanocytes in your skin rapidly in an unnatural way. By doing this, you're increasing your risk of melanoma, because melanoma is a type of skin cancer that results from melanocytes, those cells I was talking about. And cancer, the way that it forms, is usually through rapid production of cells. So if you're speeding things up synthetically, cancer is basically where one of those cells that's being produced is not, it's not genetically correct, right? So what then happens is those cells start to proliferate and you have these kind of broken, destroyed cells that are producing, and that's how you get things such as a tumor, and in this case, a tumor of melanocytes is going to be a melanoma. So again, this doesn't come without risks, and at the end of the day, you also have to remember, this permanent tanning, you may not like the way it looks for the rest of your life, and there's really not a lot you can do to then get rid of it once you have it done. So my general philosophy is, if you are looking to have a tan, for an event, or you want to get a tan for God knows what, I typically say just opt for the spray tan. Do not go to the tanning bed, please, because obviously UV light leads to its own issues of skin cancer risk, increased aging, etc. So just get a spray tan, have that be temporary. That way you're not stuck with this permanent discoloration of the skin, and you won't have that increased risk of cancer. So I hope you enjoyed this Glam Gasp and this episode of today's Uncensored Beauty. I'm Dr. Sean. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and smash the subscribe button below, and I will see you next time.